Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, The Black Accountant. It's your boy Mo, and if you haven't already done so, you know the drill. Go ahead and like and comment and subscribe, and let me know in the comments of any kind of content you want to see going forward. But most importantly, don't forget to turn on notification bells so you get notified when I drop new videos. So today I want to talk a little bit about having potential and just what that means overall, what it means for me, what it means for you. And I think it's a bit of an interesting topic because it really depends on the environment that you grow up in as to whether or not you think you have potential and just how that sort of affects you and comes into play. Literally growing up, I was one of those kids who sort of always people seem to see some kind of potential in me, where I'd always hear like, oh, you're so smart, or you're so mature for your age, you're so this, you're so that. And that's because I was kind of a quiet kid where I would isolate myself from other people. I was heavily involved in the library and reading, and that's because growing up, my parents were really into or invested in us in the idea of me and my siblings always reading and always seeking some kind of knowledge. My dad is that type of person. Till now, he's always learning something or always interested in learning something new. And I guess that really translated to me as a kid. So I was always in that kind of headspace. Now, the thing is, when you're a kid and people are always telling you you're smart or you're this, you always sort of think that you're ahead of the curve, and you don't, if you're not consistently stimulated, then you start to really think that, right? Where I'm ahead of the curve, or I'm this, and that, and you don't do as much. So I think for me growing up, as I aged into my teen years and later on, I kind of stopped trying in school because a lot of the programs just seemed so easy. And that's because I went from a private religious school. And don't be fooled by hearing private. Private doesn't necessarily mean that it was a really great school. It was just that it set a lot of moral and religious foundations for me. And then around 2009, I moved to California for high school. And just going from that transition from that school to a public school was a huge acclimation. And then I just assumed that I would just go through classes in the same way. Everything would be easy. And it sort of was to a degree, but I found that the standards were so different, and that anytime something became even slightly challenging to me, I would just assume that I was just not smart enough, or that I didn't, that I just didn't know it, or I wasn't adept or couldn't get adept at it, when in reality, it just meant that I needed to put in the work at this point. It's like going into something where you don't have that experience and you need to put in that experience. And I became a quitter and a slacker for the longest time. In my high school years, especially between 9th grade and around 11th grade, I was really just slacking and just barely getting by, because anytime something was slightly challenging to me, or just not challenging at all, or not stimulating at all, I would just not do it. And I was kind of failing out in my 9th grade year. And then once I got to 10th grade and 11th grade, I started to think a little bit more realistically, because there's the idea of college. And I didn't really apply myself because I didn't want to take on those challenges. Now, what ended up becoming sort of a mind shift for me around especially my 12th grade year was seeing how well my siblings were doing, how they were thriving, and the people around me, and just realizing that if I spent all this time quitting every time something got hard, I would never get anywhere. And actually, shout out to my track coach at the time, Coach Hamilton, because he really flamed me. I remember one time I showed up to track practice and I was really not putting in any effort whatsoever. And he called me out in front of everybody, where he was just saying like, Mo, like you're a slacker or whatever, and all this crap. And it pretty much it sort of kind of lit a fire under my ass, because he came and talked to me after the practice and had told me, he's like, why are you not trying? And I said, oh, it's hard. And then he told me, you don't think all these other people around here think this is hard? Do you think this is just easy for everybody? No, they're applying themselves. They're trying to better themselves. So what's your excuse? And it's not like this was a magical moment where I was just like, yeah, from that day on, I tried so hard. No, I ended up quitting the track team because of it. because I was like a weak little bitch. And then, but that lesson sat in the back of my mind. And then once I sort of entered college, I started to get a little bit more serious because I found myself in a completely new environment with nobody to push me, and not knowing what career path I wanted to do, what decisions I wanted to make. And I felt like something needed to change. And that's when I started to really start to take myself a little bit more seriously. And I was Dean's List for those first 2 semesters. And that was because I was taking like those entry level courses and trying to sort of make myself a little bit better, or start being different things, or trying to become somebody. And I started trying to find work. Not that I wasn't trying to find work before, more so in a capacity where I would do it with the rest of my stuff. As in, I'd be taking classes, I'd be trying to get involved in some clubs, and also trying to work at the same time, so I could start building that work ethic. You know, I started to see the people around me, and when I say people around me, I mean family, friends, etc., who were always doing their best, or always trying hard, and I wasn't. And it made me decide I wanted to be better. And then I just really developed that work ethic from there, and consistently kept up with whoever it is that I was trying to become, and realizing at that point that if I applied myself in different areas, I could be whoever I wanted to be. Now, I started to see the potential in myself. Now, once you start sort of walking with a level of confidence, people start to see that. And then people start seeing potential in you and other things, where it's like, oh, okay, like he would be a great person to mentor. Like he would be great here. He would be great here. And the caveat of that, well, I can't even pronounce that word right now, is that people start putting their own expectations on you and putting their own ideas of potential on you. And for me, I've always been the type of person that hates to disappoint. I was essentially, I guess, was a people pleaser, where I didn't want to let people down. So I always felt like whenever somebody told me I had potential in something, I needed to become that, or I needed to do that. And it became really burdensome to the point where I started focusing all the time on just improvement. Like I can always be a better version of myself. I always need to be working. I could do this in a shorter time. And while that's all and great, and I love that part of myself, I also hated it in a sense, because I felt like I was really burning out, because I was just trying to take on way too much and always do what everybody was expecting of me. And it only took up until the last maybe 2 to 5 years where I really started just focusing in on me, where I started deciding, what are my goals? Yes, I do have potential in a lot of areas, but it's not my responsibility and it's not my job to undertake whatever anybody else's potential they see in me, only my own. And seeing, who do I want to become? How do I want to become it? What's the problem I want to address? What's the mark I want to leave on the world? And then just going towards that. So the moral of the entire story here for me, and that I'm trying to relay here, is that everybody has potential. Everybody has latent potential. And sometimes it's seen by the people around you, and they really want to push you to something or to be something. But it's not your responsibility to fulfill anybody else's dreams or anybody else's idea of who you could become or who you should become. Only your own. And I think when it comes to capitalizing on any kind of potential, it isn't just about you anymore in that sense. Like it's your choice what potential you want to capitalize on. But also, who do you owe it to be that best version of yourself? And what kind of responsibility do you want to take on? So for me, I think if I wanted to summarize the impact I want to have is, anything I learn, I want to be a guiding post for the people behind me who have no idea how to move, how I moved, or where I moved to. You know, like if I was able to break into recruiting or break into a corporate space, and the people around me didn't know how to do that, because I do come from an immigrant family, I find it that my obligation and a desire of mine to open that door for them a little bit more. If I've taken the liberty or had the time to learn life lessons, to teach those life lessons to somebody else who may not have somebody to tell them that life lesson or help them figure it out a little bit sooner than they would have on their own. And just becoming more involved in my society and more involved in the people with and invested in the people around me, the people who see me and the people who I see, and feeling like I need to give back. I need to give back in that way. Now, that's the potential I choose to capitalize on. Now, what I think is my responsibility within that potential that I chose is to give back. So let's say I decided to become a businessman. My responsibility then is to find and create a lane that contributes back to my society, that matches my ideals, that matches my morals. Not to just go about it and capitalize on that potential and forget everybody around me and forget everybody and where I came from and the people who depend on me. And even if people don't depend on me, the people who may potentially look up to me, setting an example of some sort. So that's what I mean when I say it's your choice and your decision what potential and what avenue you want to carve out for yourself, but it's also your responsibility to carve it out in a way that lets you sleep at night. That also includes the people around you, whether seen or unseen by you, who have always been supporting you, whether that's in silence or out loud. So that's all I really had for today's video. Let me know what your thoughts are on the topic in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.